Well, thank you and welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us this morning, this Wednesday morning. This is the final webinar in our series labeled Accredited Training Life Before and After 30 June 2026. It's amazing. It feels like we've been involved with this with the series for a lifetime. We started it back in November 2025 when we saw the interest and the queries coming through for this transition to QCTO and what does that mean for accredited training. And so we've gone along this journey, and in that space, we've absolutely updated where we could in terms of what's happening with qualifications, what's happening with the short courses, accredited training, how does it impact BEE? And today is a lot more of that. Obviously, we want to provide updates since the last conversation we had, where there are updates, and then to focus on the areas that seem to be burning points along the majority of people that send through queries, both pre and post registration for this webinar. By way of introduction, my name is Mark. I'm Managing Director and co-founder of Kwelanga Training. So I'll be navigating this webinar with my panel, Lisa and Johanna. I'm going to allow them a second just to introduce themselves. Lisa, starting with you.
Need more than a second, Mark. Just to give people background to why I'm here. I'm Lisa Ann van den Berg, National Quality Assurance Manager for Kwelanga Training, but my background comes from HET and FET sector. My whole working life has been in the education sector. I've lectured, facilitated, led IP development, worked extensively in quality assurance and compliance in line with legislation and all institutional requirements. I've also been developing learning material and assessments since the early 2000s with a strong focus always on linking the theory to workplace practical application. So one of the important things that we're going to be discussing today, Mark, is the workplace mentors. I know you're going to be taking us through the agenda, but in the HET sector field, I was instrumental there with placing learners in industry for experiential learning and mentoring them through that process. I've been part of Kwelanga Training's team since 2011, and in 2013 took the leap to come down to Durban to open a branch here for Kwelanga Training. So I currently oversee the Durban region as well as accreditation, IP and operations. But more recently, Johanna and myself have been working closely on our own QCTO journey, which includes the successful accreditation for one suitable skills program, because we know it's been slow going on the QCTO registrations. So Johanna, over to you.
Thanks, Lisa. My name is Johanna. I also from Kwelanga Training, coming very strong with training and development. I've worked in the training industry for the past 20 years, started as a training administrator, moved my way up to an SDF and training manager across both technical and soft skills industries. I've worked very closely with multiple SETAs on the NMIS systems, and I've been heavily involved in the grant applications, managing the grant application from end to end and applying for training academy approvals and accreditation for those employers where I was working with. I've been with Kwelanga since 2022, the past 4 years, as a senior quality assurance administrator, whereby I oversee the division in terms of assessment, both learnership and short courses, and support the business reporting in terms of the SETA communication. Currently, as we are moving on to the QCTO, I'm primarily focused on QCTOs and transitioning and accreditation, ensuring that all our clients and learners are supported in phasing out legacy programs and QCTO accreditation application. In this industry, mostly I bring strongly assessment set experience in assessment center, quality assurance, and I'm very much passionate about ensuring that quality delivery and creating an efficient system that supports both learners and the stakeholders. Thank you, Mark. Over to you.
Thank you, Johanna. Thank you, Lisa. I feel rather dwarfed by the panelists that are joining me here today with their experience. And if either of you have worked with either Lisa or Johanna, you know the high level of expertise that they bring into those roles. So just in terms of today's format, we will keep it as informal as possible, very conversational. You'll note that your cameras and mics have been disabled, which is standard for any webinar like this, just to make sure that we don't have too many interruptions and we can achieve our timelines. But if you've got any questions or queries, you'll also see Stephanie there. She's monitoring the chat. Please pop it into the chat, and she will be raising those queries at the end of the webinar. Right. So with that, I'm going to jump quickly into this slide, because we did ask what support or guidance would make the biggest difference to your QCTO transition right now. So firstly, thank you for all the feedback. We received a tremendous response, both at the end of the last webinar and for the registration of this webinar. And we've actually used some of those responses to try and group and see what are the big burning points. And that's obviously helped us shape today's session. But we couldn't capture everything, so we have got those questions for you in terms of how they, what themes were raised, how we will address those today, and the rest that we will share with you in the post-webinar pack. But if you're looking for a lot more detail, and a lot of you, not a lot of you, but there are those individuals or organizations that were looking for far greater level of expertise when it comes to the accreditation in QCTO, then we would recommend Thrive. They can provide guidance on compliance requirements, accreditation procedure, a regulatory process and updates. And we've partnered with them since our inception in 2007. So I can highly recommend Andrea and the team. You'll see there's a QR code there that'll take you to their website, and you can engage directly with them when it comes to all things related to QCTO support, accreditation, etc., and they'll gladly help you. So if you didn't manage to capture the QR code now, don't worry, we are going to send out the pack at the end of the session, so you will be able to review those queries and then also engage with them directly where required. Right, what's on today's agenda? Part one is really about understanding the QCTO shift, having a look at what have we done, what has changed since we last met, and then of course the big focus around workplace mentors. I believe that's a critical success factor, and we're going to be going into some depth there just to share what that looks like. After that, I will unpack the impact on B scorecard when it comes to training, both pre and post 30 June. And we'll just be walking through some demonstrations using a very basic B calculator. And then from that, have a look at what is remaining in terms of legacy unit standards. What can you still do before 30 June? And what should you be setting up for post 30 June transition? Now, a lot of you have gone a long way down this journey. You've already implemented a lot of areas. Some of you, it's still fairly new, and you're still trying to wait for information as it becomes available. So hopefully by the end of today, there will be a few more nuggets that you can take along with you and move positively and confidently forward. Remember, we are also here to help you with this. At the end of the webinar, I will share contact details, so please reach out to us and we will help and guide where possible. Johanna, we asked the question, understanding the QCTO shift. And one of the big areas that came out was employers and what challenges they face in terms of creating the right environment. Help us unpack that, and what does that look like for the employer when they engage on a QCTO accreditation?
Thank you, Mark. With regards to this, in our previous session, we unpacked the QCTO shift. So we building on that discussion, we will briefly outline the below challenges that the organization are facing. We'll just touch base on them because we previously discussed them. The first one being development of QCTO programs. We have seen that there are limited programs, replacement programs that QCTO is working on. And the second one was direct workplace impact. How does this actually impact the workplace approval, the process in terms of the workplace approval. Then the workplace mentor also was another challenge that we have picked up that the employers are facing. Then moving again to the third key point was the summative and credit. We have seen that in terms of credit that the QCTO has given to the qualification that they've put in, they have put more credit or short credit and the time frame. So we're trying to see how best as employers are going to move around these challenges.
Thanks, Johanna. And I think one of the key areas we wanted to have a look at it is this point number one, with the limited replacement of programs. And I know you're going to talk to that next. Has there been any sort of updates, any changes? What can you share with us since the last time we met?
Okay, there has not been any movement in terms of what we have from the previous session. With the SETA still has got the same qualifications that have been done here. With us, we have already got accreditation on conflict management, and we are ready to roll the program post the 30th of June. 2026. With other ones that are listed below, we are still, SETA has registered the programs, but we are still waiting for the learning materials development. So nothing has basically changed in terms of the previous session on what has been SETA has developed in terms of new replacement learning material.
Okay, thank you. And bear in mind, just for the purpose of our audience, these are programs that we focus on. This is in terms of Kwelanga's perspective. So it's really around services SETA and the areas of expertise that we're unpacking. I know that there were more than just these programs. There were a couple of skills programs. And I've noticed here on these two qualifications, you've highlighted two areas around credits.
Correct, Mark. Yes, also, and on this one, there has been some few bit of movement there, because when you look at some corporate general management, we have credits have been allocated. There's a move in terms of credit allocations there. The ones that are highlighted, including the first line manager, they have worked on the credits. They've been increased. Can you please move to the other slide, please? Sorry for that.
No problem.
Yes,
here we go. This one?
Yes, also the same. When you look at contact center, they have allocated some credit for this. Previously, there were no credit, but now there have been a movement since our last fireside chat in terms of credit. So anything, Lisa, that you'd like to add in terms of this programs?
No, just to say that we are still watching the lobby groups and the QCTO registrations on their website, plus they send out communication, plus the services SETA. We're part of that group where we get invited to the stakeholder sessions, and so we're tracking what's happening. But this is all accurate since prepping late last week for our scope.
In essence, not a lot has changed other than having a couple of updates in terms of credits and durations, but essentially there's been slow movement. The one area that we did want to focus on today, because there were a lot of queries around it, is the topic of workplace mentors, which is a critical success factor. Johanna, lean into that a little bit more with us.
Yes, Mark, yes, this is a critical success factor because of when you look at QCTO, the qualifications are built in this, to integrate the following: the knowledge component, practical skills, and workplace experience. But for all this that needs to be done in terms of workplace experience, the workplace experience now, it needs to be structured. That means that the organization, learners don't just do the work, but it needs to be done in a logical sequence. Then they also need, in terms of workplace, they need to be supervised. That's where the workplace mentors are coming in terms of making sure that they are actually doing the work and they are supervised and making sure that the work is done. Then documented. This is where the workplace mentor will come in terms of, this will be reflected in terms of logbooks and the evidence acquired that the learners have to collect. This will also prove that the learners actually completed the required activities, and the mentors needs to support them step by step in making sure that all the theory has been done, and supervised, including the logbooks have been done in the workplace. But noting that in all QCT All Skills programs, Mark, we include all work, does not include all workplace a component, but they require workplace relevance. Not all the skills programs have got workplace component, but they need to have a mentor to make sure that they do the workplace that is relevant to their workplace industry and be able to apply. Hence, we need the workplace mentor.
Johanna, this looks like a lot of work for somebody. And we know already that people in the environment, in a work environment, have got a full-time role now to add on additional structures, additional roles and tasks that need to be executed. There's a mountain of work to be had here. And I think potentially there's an opportunity here for us to lean in and help those people, because it's a lot to navigate, and when it's new, it's all new. So there's a steep learning curve initially. But Lisa, what are your thoughts around this workplace mentors and making it a success?
Yeah, thank you, Mark and Johanna. So we've highlighted there on that slide the mentoring process, which we're all familiar to an extent with. We think we know what mentoring is, but the QCTO is leaning heavily on this. So especially if you're an organization that's going to offer full qualifications, the learnerships, and you're wanting to have your learners be found competent and pass through the ESA or the ISA, however they say that, the External Integrated Summative Assessment, you're going to have to reflect on the mentoring process. So let's go on to that next slide that you had, Mark. So I just thought it's worthwhile saying, what is the mentor's role here? Let's break it up so that it becomes practical. They're not supervisors, but they are accountable for workplace competence. So often with the learnership, the legacy qualifications, what we've seen is that the supervisor's tasked with signing off logbooks. And you get remediated if you don't do it correctly, because you can't do it retrospectively. And it's like the logbooks land on someone's desk and their job is to sign them off. But they actually have never witnessed the learner doing the task. Okay, so the QCTO is saying, where are you seeing this in action? So what does a workplace mentor actually do? They enable learning because they're going to guide the learner through the workplace tasks. They're going to coach and support because they've got to demonstrate those standards and best practice. Remember that, Mark, the 70-20-10, right? This is that 70% in action. Because you're going to have to be shown, guided, supported in the workplace. You're going to get the practical exposure, but it also supports the 20 because of that nurturing that happens. So we want to bridge the theory to real work with that coaching and support, monitor and verify. This is the admin stuff that you're going to have to track and say, yes, they've done it, and you're going to give a comment. So that authenticity, they're wanting to know that you've seen the learner do these things and practically apply. Prepare for assessment. Well, you've got a partner in your SDP, so you don't have to get nervous about, oh, what's the role on preparing for assessment? But there are going to be some things that the learner's going to have questions about, and the mentor's there to calm them and just to help them and guide them through that. But the SDP plays an important role in that. Mark, you can move on, thanks. Unless, you've got a question there, or I've spoken too fast, because I do have that negative trait. And then, sorry.
No, I was going to say all good, Lisa. No, I think you're tracking beautifully.
Okay,
no
great.
Questions.
Thank you. So then here we've just given a little diagram to show that how it all works, because on the left there you've got occupational competence. That's what we're trying to prove here. When a learner signs up for a short skills program or a learnership via the QCTO's registered qualifications, that they are competent in the workplace. So you've got the employee, you've got the SDP, Kwelanga Training in that regard, the skills development provider, and you've got the workplace. So the SDP's responsibility is to come and say, well, here's the knowledge component and here's the practical skills. But then the workplace says, well, we're giving you the opportunity to get the experience. And the employee is saying, well, I've got now the knowledge and the practical skills from the SDP. I've got my position in the workplace. Now I've got to apply that learning. But all of that is bracketed there because the workplace mentor will assist. So just that last statement there, competence is achieved when learning is applied and demonstrated in the workplace. And that's where the workplace mentor needs to verify that, yes, you have demonstrated this competence. So QCTO is going to be checking for those things. So Mark, I'm happy to move on.
I think that's, I mean, it's fine and well to have a structured process like this. And I mean, it looks very well thought out, but what are the common pitfalls that we expect or that we're expecting to see in this particular process?
Yeah, so Mark, it's all learning. People, you know, when there's change and we got to move on, we always get a bit nervous and, oh, we knew the old, but there were problems with the old too. So this is where the QCTO is coming in and saying, please correct what's the past, the issues, the gaps. So the common pitfalls there, and I'm sure if you've been involved in the learnerships especially, you will see this as a pitfall. Mentors aren't formally appointed. They're not trained. They don't know the expectations. We might have a mentor induction, but the supervisors sort of go away and don't take ownership. And what we're seeing, if I can just deviate quickly, is on our customized side of things. We're getting a lot of clients come to us and say we need more accountability to be driven in the workplace. Ownership. How do we develop those skills? So this is about where workplace and SDPs join as a partner, and we help understand that process, that we can translate it in the workplace for you, and that these mentors need to be formally appointed. They need to realize this is my role for this particular group of learners or this one learner. You don't have to have one mentor for one learner. You can have one mentor for a group of 5 in a learnership situation. And then you can work on, you know, as long as it's, Johanna, you mentioned structured. We can assist you with structuring that process and how it goes down, that it doesn't become onerous, but it becomes practically applicable to the mentors. So we take the burden off the mentor or the client having to feel that it's onerous. So mentors are not formally appointed or trained. The logbooks are completed. I said that stack that comes onto my desk and sure, but I've got to do it. But I don't know whether they did it or not, but yeah, they've said they were there and they did it, and it's times. Poor alignment to curriculum tasks, because I, as a mentor, don't know what this practical task actually means. How do they demonstrate that in the workplace? And a tick box, sign off without verification. No time allocated for mentoring, because sure, but it's just another thing. All of us have got such tremendous burden of life happening in the work-life balance, and this becomes a tick box exercise, and it's about B-BBEE, and I don't know why I've got to be, you know, handling it, and so let me just go and do, what do I need to do here, and we just do it. So what works is that you appoint and brief workplace mentors formally. We align the workplace tasks to curriculum up front, and we've got a method of doing that. We review logbooks continuously. This is like when you've got to fill in a travel log. Okay, I know you've got plugins for your cars and trackers and apps and whatever, but it's got to be that you've watched them or they've come and presented evidence to you and you fill in the logbook. It's not a monthly logbook exercise, okay, or a weekly admin task. Build mentoring into operational workflows. So this is what we're doing. We've got 20 people in a learnership, and we want them to be, you know, prove competence at the end. And how do we need to address the mentoring? So it's got to be looked at in terms of your workflows, and then you partner closely with the SDP. So whoever you choose you know, they need to have these mechanisms in place to guide and support you. So just remember what Johanna said as well, even when a skills program does not include a workplace component, many of the skills programs don't, but you should be encouraging that application in the workplace. So support informal mentoring if you go the skills programs route, but you know, support the formal mentoring if you go the qualifications route. So remember, it's not about completion. It's not that tick box. It's about competence. And if on learnerships, if the workplace component fails, the entire QCTO program fails, they'll just send you back. Okay, they're not going to stand for any fly-by-nights or doing it, you know, retrospectively and all that. Okay, Mark, so I think everyone can probably resonate with some of those.
Absolutely. Thank you, Lisa. And I mean, this component of workplace mentors is such a vital one. I know that you spent some time unpacking that and looking at particular areas that we can assist clients with. Perhaps you can share some of that, some of your thoughts in terms of what you've seen or where we can provide support.
Yes, so definitely. Just remember, I just want to, to backtrack to some of Johanna's input earlier, was that we're seeing the slow development, and registration of QCTO programs. Now, Mark said that we obviously reporting on what's within our scope. That is generic management and business admin primarily. We are looking at a couple of other learnerships or qualifications, but those aren't released. Business administration, they're getting there. GM, they're getting there, but they're not there yet. But this is what we would come along. So that's why it says we'll support you with, is when it rolls out, we will be doing mentor induction workshops as a core part of our offering. So it's not it's like a non-negotiable. It will be part of our pricing, part of what we do to help you understanding QCTO workplace requirements, role clarity and expectations, logbooks and evidence requirements. So they will have induction workshops. There's a mentor guide, and we're going to be personalizing. Well, you're going to have a generic mentor guide, but depending on the qualification, the assistance will be personalized to that, individualized to the actual qualification, so that you will have a clear understanding of how you validate and authenticate and match what you've got to do with what the learner has to do, and understand those practical application tasks that they have to do in the workplace competence or component section. And then practical mentor toolkit, we would be coupling that with a guideline document and logbook guidance and checklists and workplace planning templates. What we have found works so well, and I talk from a customization side again, is that this make all learning very practical. So the checklist, the tools, there's a concept to be taught, understood, but we need a tool to make sure that we apply it. So Kwelanga Training will be giving those tools as a core offering there to help the mentor feel that confidence in executing their responsibilities. And then on the support side, which would be optional add-on services, we would, we can offer the ongoing mentor support. We're going to launch that with monthly 1-hour touch points for mentors who are needing just to have a session, troubleshooting, checking on their implementation and any Q&As. And then obviously with that, you'll get this cross-client best practice sharing, because we're all going to learn from each other, aren't we? So, and then we can share, and Kwelanga is very good at assimilating information, and then we would be sharing that in these lovely things that Stephanie designs for us, and we can send them out to keep this forum alive. So it's not just about the fireside chat, but how do we continue educating our client base and sharing so that we can all learn and grow. And then mental capability development, we've got programs already. So coaching skills, giving and receiving, effective feedback. How do we do that? So those are extras that people can supplement this whole journey with and enrich the experience.
Thank you, Lisa. Yes, and I think earlier you mentioned the 70-20-10 model. Most people are familiar with that. But as a reminder, that model assumes that 10% of learning happens in formal instruction in the classroom, or however that works out. 20% happens sort of through a peer-to-peer social learning environment, and then 70% through on-the-job training. Now, with the workplace mentors and the added responsibility on them, this component of on-the-job training is so vitally important. And I know that you've got something exciting that you want to share with us. I think it's a brilliant add-on. And already we've seen interest in clients where we look at particularly train-the-trainer models or coaching and mentoring programs. But Lisa, please share with us this next exciting chapter that we want to share with our clients.
Yeah, and could I say that this is probably the launch of it into the public space. The first time we're sharing this broadly, we have shared it with a few clients on request. But this is an exciting development in our IP space, and it comes off just watching and hearing what clients are looking for, and then developing tools, which we got the experience to do this. So this is something that's going to support the mentors. But please note in that little paragraph above the model, this tool is designed for all employees. I mean, if we had to ask for a show of hands here now, how many people, trained people in the workplace? Have you shared a process? Have you shared a system? Have you had to transfer knowledge because you're going on long leave or maternity leave, or someone's taken ill and you've got to teach someone something? So we all do this. So this on-the-job training is a highly practical model. And we've just given a synopsis in this graphic here, where we have come up with a model that's going to support all training in the workplace. So the mentor can use this to guide and support the learner. The mentor could actually, you can have your own train-the-trainer sessions, and we can have these 2.5-hour workshops where we, this could be complementary to a train-the-trainer if you wanted to run that. However, it can be a standalone 2.5-hour workshop where we equip your workforce to get better traction with training people and upskilling, and all the guides. So I'm not going to go, because you're going to get the slide presentation. We've got an overview for this, and we're really going to make it, it's practical. It's already developed, okay? This is not something that we are busy developing. It has been developed for a specific client, but we've decided to take it to the broader market. And it's the 2.5-hour, because of operational demands, we've moved away from a half day or a 1 day. 2.5 day, highly practical. You get all the tools, your staff will be trained. This is for juniors, seniors, middle, it doesn't matter. It can be technical, it can be in whichever field of, that you play in. It will be a highly useful tool for people to, peer-to-peer training, or down or up. Okay, so Mark, I don't know if I did it justice, but it is an exciting, And look at the bottom there, the missing link between training and workplace performance, because everyone always asks us, how are you going to measure ROI? How are we going to see the improvement? So this is the missing link. I feel that it can contribute to getting improved ROI.
Thank you, Lisa. Yes, we get that a lot, and I think it's a challenge for anybody that sits in L&D, especially when they're responsible for budgets. People want to see a demonstration on ROI. And often what happens is, the training intervention takes place. People are highly motivated when they come out of that training. And we've all seen the example of the forgetting curve. Within 30 days, much of what's learned has been forgotten unless it was applied. So I think this on-the-job training model really does well to bridge that gap and make training sustainable. And I think that's what we're looking for. We're looking for results. And how do we make training sustainable? Here's a framework that can help individuals clarify and execute on those particular outcomes. Lisa.
And Mark, I just wanted to reiterate, another point for people that maybe are sitting not in our classrooms, if I can call them that, not in the front end of the training, but that we couple this always, all our courses, whether you do accredited training or non-accredited training, with a personal elevation plan. So this tool, if you have this and you have your personal elevation plan and they do that, you've got people having to apply learning via a tool set, this OJT model, but then you've got the personal elevation plan that's going to set those goals and you can track. And so we partner with you to assist ensuring that workplace performance happens and guide you along conversations that you can have in the workplace between line managers, supervisors, and your junior, your team. So yes, I just thought that would be worthwhile mentioning. Thank you, Mark.
Thanks, Lisa. Thanks for sharing. And of course, you will receive this in the pack that we send at the end of the webinar. I think the fact that you mentioned accredited and non-accredited training leads quite nicely into the next topic, which is around training and the impact on the B-BBEE scorecard. Because I think a lot of the audience here today, you recognize the juggle that you have with business, because you will have specific business units coming to you and saying, we have a challenge, we need to solve it through training. This is what we need. It's aligned to our strategic priorities. Please, can you go and source skills, or can you go source a provider that can deliver on these skills? So you've got people in the L&D space having to fulfill that need that comes from business. And often that might not even be accredited training. It might be non-accredited training. And but it might be specific to a particular a strategy that business unit is pursuing. Your balance is always, how do I help the business? how do I help the employee? Because you also got employees sitting with PDPs and they're looking for personal development and to improve their impact in their roles. And then, of course, how do I balance that with how we record it on the scorecard? So you've got these three dynamics that are always creating this tension in L&D that you've got to try and find the right balance. And obviously the right balance, I say obviously, but it's not easy to achieve, is to find that that space or the programs that can help you get the accreditation, help you get the individual elevated in their role, and of course get the maximum points on the scorecard. So with that, I just want to take a step back to the 2025 Workplace Learning Report, because out of that report, there were a number of CEOs interviewed, and they identified a mix of high priority technical and human, or soft skills as we call them. And a lot of what came out of that in terms of the human skills were areas like conflict mitigation, adaptability, EQ, resilience, critical thinking, problem solving, communication. Those are considered critical skills. And yes, we are in the technology age, and we are in an era of AI, where AI has a large impact on what we do and how we do it. And a lot of organizations are already starting and have gone down that route in terms of incorporating AI into their workflow. Having said that, you still have this requirement for these human skills, because people work with people and you've got to be able to navigate that space. So where does that leave us in the tension with what's happening with legacy, what's coming with QCTO, what the business needs, and how I need to upskill people? So with that, Steph, is our first poll ready? Our one and only poll, should I say? Are we ready to pose the question?
Morning, everyone. Yes, I've just launched the poll. It should be coming up on the screen now.
Fantastic. And while that pops up, here's the question. If you had 1 million Rand to invest in people development right now and before the end of your financial year, what would deliver the best value for your organization? And with that, obviously, we can see that 4 options there: accredited programs, non-accredited business aligned training, a blend of both, or I'm not sure. That's why I'm here. Stephanie, what are the results looking like? I can't see them on my side.
So at the moment, a blend of both is quite in the lead there with 76%. We've got 21 responses so far. I see accredited programs sitting at 18% of the votes, non-accredited business aligned training sitting at 8%, a blend of both sitting at 75%. So I think a blend of both is in the lead quite a bit at the moment. 24 responses right now.
Thanks, Steph. So pretty much what we thought. People have got to create the balance. You've got to find what's going to work for the business, what's going to work for the individual, and what's going to work for the scorecard. And often it's a blend of both, or a blend of multiple particular programs to get you to the desired outcome. So what I'm going to do now is just give you a very practical example of what that could look like by sharing my BBEE calculator. And I just want to check with my team. Has it popped up on the screen, or do I need to end the previous slide and start a new one?
It has, Mark.
It has. Okay, so you can see it over there. And I'm just going to put out a massive disclaimer right in the beginning. This is an internal calculator. We use it with our clients to get an idea, sort of get in more or less a snapshot of where we could be putting or applying money so that we get maximum return on our scorecard. And I'm going to quickly talk you through how that works. Of course, we always say double check any figures with your BE advisors. Most organizations have a BE analyst that'll come in and verify the information for them. But this will give you more or less a snapshot of what that could look like. So I'm going to play around here. Is the screen big enough for everyone to see? I need to make it slightly bigger. Let's go one bigger. And we're looking at this example. The green box is the ones that we can play with. In this instance, I'm going to let's go with the national EAP target, and EAP representing the economic active population, because you're going to get measured on that, especially for those organizations that have a generic scorecard. In other words, you have a turnover of 50 million or more. In this instance, we're going to look at a payroll of, let's make it 100 million. And let's have a look at a total staff count of 1,000. I'm going to make the numbers quite easy, so it rounds off. If that was your payroll, then your annual spend, your 6%, would be made up of 3.5 million in terms of skill spend and 2.5 million in terms of bursary spend. And that'll get you to your 6% or your 6 million target. Of course, there are different scorecards and percentages applied depending what sector you're in. For the purpose of this exercise, we're just going with the generic sector and the generic BE scorecard. And you'll see straight away the numbers spit out there. Category F and G, 875,000, because that's limited to 25%. And for most of you that are involved in the space, you'll know that that budget you probably achieve in your first quarter of your financial year. And so the rest of your focus needs to come back to this 3.5 or 2.5 million rand. So if you've got that 1 million rand and you need to make an impact on your scorecard, where do we make the biggest impact? I always say go look at learnerships first. Learnerships give you your biggest, particularly employed learnerships will give you your biggest return, because you not only count the training spend, but you can also count the employee salary. The trick, though, is that when you get to a generic scorecard, you also have specific demographics in terms of your spend. So you have a spend per population group, per gender, and so you have to balance that with the headcount, because when it comes to learnerships, we're looking at headcount. So on an organization, for example, where there's 1,000 employees, your maximum target there would be 50 on learnerships. So let's say you're sitting in a scenario where you've only done 40 learnerships, or you've 40 people employed, or 40 people registered for learnerships, then you certainly still have a gap to enroll 10 more. The trick here is to get the balance right, because these are the percentages you will see that you need to achieve per population group on learnership. And you might not have that demographic in your workforce. You can, of course, go to suppliers or selected clients and make up those numbers. But if you don't have the exact numbers, or you're unable to apply it in the correct formulas, then you won't get additional points for going over and above those targets. So it's a fine balance in making sure what do we get right. But let's say in this instance, you're 10 short, you've got the right demographic. Where do we go and spend in terms of learnerships? I think the important thing now is to have a look at what is available on QCTO. Is there anything that works in my industry or our sector that is a good fit for what the business needs, and certainly will provide good development for our individuals? If there's something there, then wonderful. That's where I would look to spend that money for a QCTO program. However, if you look at legacy learnerships versus current QCTO, there's not a like-for-like swap. You won't find a like-for-like what there was, let's say, in our space, for example, generic management 4 and 5. The QCTO equivalent is not yet available. So where does that leave you from a BE scorecard perspective? My recommendation is, if you've got a gap and you can fill it, let's say you can do a group on learnerships and you don't have the like-for-like equivalent in QCTO, register your delegates now, register your learners now before the 30th of June. In fact, I would even recommend before or by 31 May, because I think that last month there's going to be chaos on the LMIS in terms of getting people registered. Doesn't mean that those courses expire on the 30th of June, or those programs or qualifications. Just means that delegates need to be registered. And then we probably advise, if you haven't started the training, at least started within a month or two of the registration having taken place. So, and then Lisa, correct me if I'm wrong, I think you've probably got about 18 to 24 months to exit those learners on those selected legacy learnerships. Is that right?
Most of them are 3 years still to 2029, okay. But we look at each one. But yes, if you started, so you don't have to worry if there's a slight extension or learners. Sometimes what we find with learnerships is learners, 2 or 3 out of a group fail to submit timeously, and there's a mopping up. So we have got time to mop up.
Okay. Thank you. So that would be my recommendation. Go first to learnerships, particularly employee learnerships. You're going to get your biggest or your easiest return on money. Have a look at what's available. If there's something for you on QCTO, absolutely go and enroll there. If there's not, because we don't have a like-for-like swap yet, see what you can still get out of legacy learnerships. You can still enroll now, because your biggest risk is this. If you don't enroll on a qualification before the 30th of June and you don't have a replacement after 30 June, when your scorecard deadline comes, which is your financial year end period, and you haven't been able to make up the points, you could be at risk of actually dropping. You know, if you don't hit your sub-minimum in skills, we all know you've got to hit the 40% sub-minimum. If you don't hit that in skills, you then run the risk of dropping an extra level down. And if, you know, for most organizations, BE has become a strategic imperative. So the risk there is quite high. You don't want to be taking any chances. And if you feel that you're in that bracket, rather enroll before 30 June, make sure you bank those BE points. If you've got something that's available after 30 June, then that's fine. Then you've got something to spend. So what happens now if you've already achieved your number? You've gone 50 or even 50 plus on learnerships. So there's no more real benefit for you to spend there in terms of what can be recognized by demographic. Then we have to come back to the skill spend target. What else can I look at? And then category E becomes quite important. Category E, in terms of legacy unit standards, you could probably cover all those topics that I mentioned earlier that were identified in that 2025 learning report. Things like problem solving, critical thinking, communication, presentation skills, emotional intelligence, adaptability, conflict resolution. Those are all currently are registered units, have registered unit standards. They're legacy, but they're still available until for registration until 30 June. So then that would be my next play. Let's have a look at what's available now. And is there a like-for-like post 30 June? And we can tell you quite confidently that there's very little available in our space when it comes to the people skills, the ones that are being highly sought after post 30 June. I think the ones that I'm aware of are problem solving and conflict resolution. And then the rest are in the pipeline, but they might not be ready before your financial year end. So I think apply some due diligence here, make sure that you achieve the maximum spend that you can, and to make sure that you obviously get through everything that you need to on your scorecard, and where it's not available, I urge you then have a look at what's still available now and make sure we register before that deadline, which is 30 June. So I'm going to exit here. And again, while I'm going back to the slide, is to just remind you, my personal opinion is try and get things done by 31 May. That registration period in June is going to be pretty hectic. There might be absolute pandemonium, who knows? You just want to play it safe. And if BE is a high imperative, you don't want to take any risks if you don't have anything available post 30 June. So on this particular slide, I've just recapped for you. Non-accredited training is obviously limited. Learnerships, you've got headcount targets, but the challenge could be demographics. And of course, accredited short courses. Have a look at what's available now and what will be available post 30 June. Then in terms of those legacy learnerships and unit standards where Kwelanga can help you bolster your scorecard now, we are currently still registered for BA4, GM4 and GM5. So if you've got interest or you've got scope or capacity in that space and you've got a gap in terms of your headcount target that you need to achieve, please speak to us. We can still get people enrolled on those particular programs. In terms of category E, we've still got all those legacy unit standard courses available. I mentioned them previously, but those will most likely be the ones where you can benefit the individual and benefit the business and potentially even customize it to a particular outcome that the business is looking for. We certainly can help you with that. And then I always say partner with procurement, because they also have, just like skills has a sub-minimum target of 40%, so does procurement. And if you can work together with them, you can build credibility with that department, but you can also build a good, solid BE scorecard. And what I mean by that is, for example, if you can find one provider and through one spend, you can address multiple tick boxes, then that's the kind of solution you're looking for, because it means that you don't have to go and look for other providers, you don't have to look for other programs, you get it all done through one spend. So to give you an example here, in terms of procurement on the generic scorecard, and this is just very high level, you have a total spend target, and that gets recognized between 100 and 135% or even less, depending on your BE level. If you're less than level 4, then it's less than 100%. Level 4 will get you 100%. We're a level 2, so that will get you 125%. And what that basically means is if you've spent 100,000 Rand with Kwelanga, on the scorecard, 125,000 will get recognized. Not only that, your procurement team also needs to address these targets here. They need to spend a certain amount with QSEs. They need to spend a certain amount with organizations that are more than 51% Black owned. And they need to spend a certain amount with organizations that are more than 30% Black female owned. Now, if you've got one provider that has all of these credentials, then you only need one spend. So that 100,000 becomes 125,000, but it also goes towards your QSE spend, your 51% and above Black ownership spend, and your 30% Black female-owned organizations. So be strategic in choosing your providers, because it can cut down time and it can really help you bolster your procurement scorecard together, obviously, with your skills scorecard. Right, so that is learnerships, and that's all the area that I have, and just also as a disclaimer, I'm not a learnership guru. What I know is what I've learned in terms of working with clients, understanding where their pressure points are, and how our programs and how our ownership structure can help solve some of those problems. But again, I always say verify things with your BE analyst. Those are the guys that are specialists in this area. They know where everything fits and where it doesn't, and they'll be able to provide much more specific feedback. So Lisa, I'm going to throw the ball back in your court, because in terms of proactive steps, what can we do? What can clients still do before the current financial year end is over, and potentially even into their new financial year for those that have just started a new financial period?
Correct. So for those that are ending, or those that are starting, or those that are close to ending and starting, you could have a double whammy here. So yeah, I won't read the full slide there, but you've heard Mark just give us some insights into the B-BBEE and the scorecard. So you have to go and have a look at that, step 1, and where accredited programs are not yet available, what are you going to do about that, because of the slow movement and the transitioning? Number 2, have a look at the legacies. I think as part of our post-webinar pack, Stephanie, we can send out the programs document as well, just to guide people on what is available, and identify those legacy. Mark, you mentioned short courses, the skills programs versus learnership. So there is still a basket of programs that you can select from. But here we've got April to June still to capitalize on the legacy. So go and invest in them. If you find yourself in a position where you haven't spent, or you have to spend and you're worried about leaving it late in the year. We've had a couple of clients already ask us, well, what about if I only want to spend in September, October? And we've got solutions for that. So come and have a chat to us, but you can capitalize now on legacy for August, and we'll guide you on that process. But just remember, we're going to close off, as Mark said, around about the 30th of May, because we don't want technological issues in the LMIS to stop us from getting your candidates on the system. And then partner with procurement, number 4. Mark spoke into that, and go and have a look at current and future training programs that deliver both scorecard and business value, because we don't just want to have a tick box, we want to have competence in the workplace, that people are taking our companies forward, and all this future thinking and adding value. And yes, the industry alignment is there. You can speak to your seaters if there's something that's missing from QCTO. and to have it added or to check in with them. Are they busy developing something? They are open to that and they're encouraging industry. The key takeaways then, it's 1 to 8. Sorry, we've spoken about all of this. So enroll your learners, review that sector plan, limited soft skills options, remember that. Go and have a look at what workplace mentoring, if you're a learnership type of client, go and have a look at what that means and start planning for it. Maximize your accredited spend. Go and have a look at your business priorities and I'll always align your training to that. Dual value training. Let's get proactive, plan for now, next and future. And obviously, again, optimize the legacy spend while transitioning. Thank you, Mark.
Thanks, Lisa, for getting us through so quickly and in time. I see we've got 2 minutes left. I'm just going to wrap up the webinar. So thank you to Johanna and to Lisa for your insights. I think there's still options available. Also, bear in mind, we've got the other deadline that's looming at the end of April for the WSP ATR. So whatever's going in there from your SDF in the WSP must be reported on in the ATR next year. So make sure that they also understand that there's not a like for like a switch. If you put in accredited emotional intelligence training and there's not an equivalent next year, when it comes to the ATR reporting, there's going to be a gap. So those are the things to look out for. I think from my perspective and from the team, thank you for joining us on this transition. I think this particular webinar is the final one, and we would dearly value your feedback. So please, if you're unable to do it now, when you get this back, please do the access the QR code and take a minute or two to complete the survey, because that will help us gain insight as to where your challenges are and where we can best support you. And then remember, we're in this journey with you. So if you're unsure about anything and don't feel that any question is insignificant, it's not, share with us, ask us. Let's start a conversation. Let's see how we can help you either with learnerships or short courses or anything else in terms of making that transition as smooth as possible. So with that, I would like to close the webinar. Stephanie, I'm not sure if there were any comments or questions that popped up through the chat group, but I'm sure that we can answer those in the feedback when we send out the post-training webinar. Happy with that?
Yes, all good, Mark.
Awesome. Well, with that, thank you, everybody. I am always mindful of people's time, and I don't want to take any more of it up. I appreciate you joining us today, and we hope that there was a nugget or two that you can take back to the workplace and implement straight away. And if you've got questions, please engage with us. Until our next series comes upon, we will send an invite. Enjoy, have a good Wednesday afternoon, and we will chat soon. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.